Welcome back to Agit TV Chicago. In this episode, Agitator artist, member, and curator Alonso Galue will give us a guided tour through Lights On, the Venezuelan Experiment. This is a show of contemporary Venezuelan artist activists, art addressing abuse of power and suppression of democracy, and people struggling for human rights is presented. Imagery and stories that bring us into the lives of artists who have been traumatized and ultimately survived, with their humanity and their sense of community and even their sense of humor very much intact, are presented in this show. But first, a very brief word on the show's curator. I first met and got to experience Alonso and his art in 2019 when he mounted a pop-up installation at Agitator's pre-COVID location on 1112 North Ashland Avenue. The name of the show was Immigrants to Go. From the ceiling of our storefront space, he suspended several wooden platters at about 3 feet off the floor. Visitors were invited to step nimbly between the suspended platters. On each was a small sculpted clay head or portrait. Each head depicted individual immigrants who came to the US and got the only jobs they could get, which was very often in the fast food industry. Each clay head rested on a bed of fries, hamburger, chicken, or other variety of fast food, and after maybe 3 days, the smell was noticeable and garnering complaints from neighbors and visitors, and it had to come down. But the point was made. This is how we treat and welcome and care for our huddled masses yearning to breathe free. This is how we treat immigrants. I mention this first encounter with Alonso not just because it's a good story or even audacious, but because it belies what appears and reappears in Alonso's work. And that's a really very deep sense of justice as an intrinsic human value. It's a dedication to the empowerment of people who speak fearlessly to power, and a dedication to community as a source of strength and wisdom and even kindness. This is evident in a recent mural project where he invited anyone and everyone to come into Agitator's gallery space and help create a mural. It's evident in the work Alonso and his partner artist, curator, and Agitator member Wendy Madrigal have done in working with the children of recent immigrants and refugees to Chicago who remain largely unhoused and stateless. In his About the Artist section on his website, Alonso says the following: "As a Venezuelan child, I was surrounded by war since my early childhood. Cars set on fire, abuse of power, Molotov and tear gas bombs, tanks, guns, military lockdowns, hunger, and fear." Lastly, I'd submit that this show is an expression of his resilience, is an act of defiance. It's a conscious choice to reject violence and harm for inclusion and empowerment, broadly and also very specifically, of those who have been disempowered and still persist in this country or in his home country of Venezuela. I've included a link to agitatorgallery.com. You can find his show and other work that Alonso has done with Agitator. I've also included a link to Alonso's personal website.
So his work portrays, for example, the movement of the people in the border between Colombia and Venezuela, called the Darien, or the Darien jungle, where a lot of people has died, and which, or Aris Jason had to go through. Jason Perez is right. Right, of course it is. So Jason Perez is an artist that moved from Venezuela, and he had to cross the Darien River to get here. He had to face extremely difficult circumstances to be able to reach the promise of peace and freedom that the United States brings to all of us. Now, in the case of Carlos Luis, he brings imagery like the saints. This is Jose Gregorio Hernandez, that is a saint in Venezuela. He used to be a doctor that healed people for really low prices, and people would consider him touched by God, just because he was able to cure them. So he brings all that imagery and he mixes it with all the paraphernalia and iconography that we receive through social media like memes and the internet. Mm-hmm. Now, he is also quoting the Tarot here. You can see the Tetramorphos of the Bible, etc., etc., and all the different elements we can continue. So, this is Jason. Jason here is showing us the scarcity and the suffering that is going on in Venezuela. You see the lines of people trying to reach aisles and empty aisles of food, while just a few are buying it through the internet while laughing at the rest of us. They are as well connected with the oil companies, that is the main source of income for all these narco dictators living there, and the lines of the people trying to get to gas, because gas is extremely scarce, extremely hard to get. And you can see they live with lights and not bulbs. And here you have the satirical side of his work, where he says, "Yo no fui ese bloqueo, it wasn't me, it was the US sanction." So here is the dictator excusing himself again for all the suffering that we go through, and just blaming it in America. This is one of my favorite pieces of the show, in which Jason portrayed the immigrant crossing the woods of the Dairén while thinking or imagining everything that they are living in the darkness of the blue, and while walking in the blood of all the dead that walked before them. So he not only is showing us this amazing picture, but he's insinuating the Venezuelan flag, that is yellow, blue, and red, and these lights that guide our character in the middle are also the stars present in the Venezuelan flag. This is a portrait of the top of the Monstra, which is a train that crosses between Mexico and the US, in which people travel trying to avoid illegal crosses and the guard patrols. So you can see how people throw things at it, and these things hit the people that can harm the people that are going in the train, but also is necessary for them because it's the only means that they have to get food. And then you have this piece in which you are seeing the suffering of the immigrant who loses everything that they own, and they are not allowed wherever they go. Now the Venezuelan becomes a sort of Cain mark that doesn't allow us to get in certain places. Venezuelans aren't welcome here, it says. And you can see the dishwasher. This is probably an immigrant that moved somewhere and has to live through the racism while doing jobs that wasn't what he studied for, what he did or used to make in his country, because they're losing their life, they're losing everything that they understand as real. And then you see the darkness, you see empty rooms, sort of a hospice or a pathway, a place where you stay for a short period of time before you cross the border. And you see the characters, maybe nurses or volunteers in these kind of places. And here is a portrait of Jason wearing the shirt that was designed by Mahenge over there. That is Darien Jungle Survivor, because in fact he crossed the Darien Jungle to get here. And then you get to my side of the exhibition, in which I'm showing the Venezuelan coup that started everything when Chavez took power, and you see all the disaster and monsters and all the deformations that happen in the society that allow this to happen. And then we go to the first moment in which the large migration started, that was 2017, when the GMB, or that is the equivalent of the army, the Venezuelan army, or the National Guard, attacked the people in a civil war while we were living surrounded by the Chavez eyes, the dictator, which I took away from this portrait because we just carried them here in the printing.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. As always, thank you for watching this episode of Agit TV Chicago. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave comments below. Would you like to see more shows and artist-curator tours of shows like this one? We'd love to read your comments and get your impressions on what we presented here. And lastly, if you can help support us, if you'd like to help us keep the lights on, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Even a small monthly donation would be tax deductible and help pay for the work that we do at Agitator. Okay, so for myself and Joey, fully in frame, you're in frame, Joey, and you're a very good boy. Thank you, and until next time, we'll say bye. Bye. Ready? Okay.